Computer Geek 01010101 here, and today we are going to be looking at this is going to be kind of a dual purpose video. I'm going to be checking the thermal paste on my Dell Dimension 2400, and I'm also going to be reapplying it since it does need reapplication at this time. And I'm also going to be showing you how to reapply thermal paste on the processor. So, what you'll need here, you're going to need a thing of thermal paste. I use Arctic Silver 5. I have a nice 3.5 gram tube. Now you'll also need some some 99% isopropyl alcohol and some cotton balls, but since we don't have that, I'm just going to be using these generic alcohol prep pads. They get the job done. They do it reasonably effectively. And third of all, you'll need a computer to do it too. In this case, it's my socket 478 base Dell Dimension 2400. Now, you might see a Windows 2000 key. Go ahead and feel free to copy that key, as Microsoft does no longer care about Microsoft Windows 2000 at this point. As I said, feel free to copy and use the said key. Now, first thing you're going to want to do here is, obviously, you're going to want to go ahead and open up the machine. Now, on this Dell Dimension 2400, it's just a matter of holding this latch down and doing that. Case opening methods may, can, or even will differ based on the system you're using. So, be advised to take different routes for opening your system. The next thing you want to do is you want to locate your heatsink and prepare it for removal. Now, this system has a little shroud thing because air is drawn across the heatsink and then pulled out the back of the machine. And there's a vent right here on the side back for getting air in. So in my case here, I want to lift and I want to tilt this up. And you can remove this. Just pull out like this, and this will come right off. So next thing you want to do here is for the safety of your processor, unplug your CPU power cable if there is one. If there isn't one, unplug your 20 or 24 pin motherboard power connector. It's usually a big, large, chunky connector like this, and it is very simple to unplug and plug back in. Now you want to remove your heatsink. In the case of this Dell Dimension 2400, there's these green tabs. Pull to the right and remove the front tab, and then repeat, except go to the left on the rear tab. Remove it and set it aside. Now, there's a front hand grip here. Pull forward and lift up. Then now you can remove the heatsink. This thing. Now let's get a good look at this heatsink. As you can see, it's not the best. It's kind of sticky, and there's a residue on my finger. Now, Now, heatsink removal methods will differ based on your system. So be prepared to take other routes. Now, there is a CPU socket latch. In this case, it's on this side of the socket. And that's blaring some chipmunk junk. What in the heck? Switch that over. Yeah. So to undo the latch for a socket 478 system, you pull over and lift up. You'll hear a click as the latch opens. This is nothing to be worried about, just that the latch is now open. Now, here's where it starts to get a little precautionary. You want to remove your CPU. And in this socket 478 system, there are two finger grips. One on this side and one on this side. These locations will differ, if they even exist on other systems, based on the system you have. So, the way you want to do this is you want to put one finger on each finger grip and then lift straight up to remove the CPU. Now, you do not ever want to touch any of these gold pins down here, or else you may degrade the performance of your processor. Now, next thing you want to do, place the CPU upside down, where the pins are facing up. Now, this would also be a good time to just take a thing of canned air and just blow it around to keep just kind of get your system a little cleaner. Now, this is where you're going to want to use the alcohol prep pads or your desired cleaning method of choice. And so, I'm just going to open one of these up, remove the small prep pad, and I'm going to begin rubbing it on the heatsink where the thermal paste is. This will not harm your heatsink. It is only beneficial to the system. Now, when it gets dirty like this, put it in the trash. Just put it in the trash. Now, you want to get this as clean as possible, especially if you're exchanging different brands or types of thermal interface material, or TIM for short. Such as you're going from thermal paste to thermal pads to thermal paste, going from Arctic Silver 5 to Arctic Silver 3, anything like that. You want to definitely get this as clean as possible, as clean as you possibly can. And feel free to use some force to do this. This won't harm the heatsink at all. And again, when it gets dirty, just chunk it in the trash. Now, what you don't want to do after you're done cleaning your heatsink is touch it where the thermal paste is going to be, around the area of the processor is going to be contacting the heatsink. This is because this will introduce oils and stuff onto the heatsink, which will degrade the performance of your thermal paste. And this will result in higher CPU temperatures. it's not may, it will result in higher CPU temperatures, which could be bad for your CPU. Now, once your heatsink has been sufficiently cleaned, you just want to let the alcohol evaporate naturally. Do not attempt to towel dry the heatsink, as this will introduce excess residue onto the heatsink and you will have to repeat the cleaning procedure. Set the heatsink aside and let it naturally dry. Now we want to repeat this cleaning procedure for the processor. So the way you do this is, again, get an alcohol prep pad or get some alcohol soaked up into a cotton ball, and you want to hold the processor by the side, not by the pins, not like this, by the side of the actual substrate material, which is this. And you want to take your thing and start rubbing it on the processor. Now, you might be like, you're getting the processor wet! Yes, I know. But this, and 99% of cases will not harm your CPU. Now, again, when your alcohol pad or whatever starts getting dirty, just chunk it. And it's very important that, again, you don't contact the heatsink, the IHS or integrated heat spreader on the top of the processor. Now, you can very gently set this down by the pins. Now, you do not want to apply pressure to the processor when it's set down like this, as it may damage the pins. So, again, just get the old TIM or thermal interface material off the processor as best as you can. And you may find a little bit of TIM on the side, such as like right here. You use your fingernail to guide the cotton ball or whatever down in here and clean that excess material up, as it can improve the efficiency of your TIM. And again, it is very critical that you do not touch the IHS of the processor after you have finished cleaning it, as this will introduce unnecessary skin oils to the processor, thus reducing the performance of your TIM. Now, once this is done, you need to, first of all, dispose of all your trash and get all your materials out of the way. And again, carefully set the processor down on its pins. And again, be as careful as you possibly can to not slide the processor on its pins. Just generally not move the processor while it's on its pins. Now, reinstallation. You want to hold it by approximately where the finger grips are, allowing about a 1/4 inch between the tip of your finger and the part of your finger that contacts the substrate. Install the processor very carefully, and then latch it. And my battery's about to die, so part 2 coming up. But we'll finish this part out. Now that you have the processor latched down, do not touch the IHS of the processor and or the heatsink where it will be contacting the processor, as it will degrade the performance of your TIM. Now, latching the processor down will probably take more force than you can expect from the lever, and on newer systems, make sure that the alignment guides match up with the little divots and stuff in the side to ensure proper installation of your CPU and avoid damaging your CPU socket. Since this battery is about to go, I'm going to stop the recording here and get this thing charged up. Okay guys, we are back. As you can see, it's obviously morning, so yeah. Again, in the previous part, the camera battery decided to go right smack in the middle of filming, so I had to end that early. Thus forcing this into a 2-part video. So yeah, I put the case cover back on to prevent too much dust and stuff from getting on the IHS of the processor. So it really won't hurt to give the IHS another wipe down. And as you can see, I'm already using one that's been opened, because I mean, I literally, this is pretty much take 1.5 of part 2, because I literally forgot to start the camera recording for part 2. So yeah, but okay, yeah, it really won't hurt just to give the IHS of the processor and the heatsink a wipe down. Another wipe down. And you want to let this stuff naturally evaporate. And again, it is highly critical that you do not touch the IHS of the processor after you have cleaned it. Or else you will degrade the performance of the TIM, thermal interface material. Again, something like 97 or 98 or 99% mixture of pure alcohol is recommended. And in here, see how these lines are running vertical? You want to clean by moving it within those lines. It ensures that you'll be getting as much TIM off the as much old TIM off the heatsink as you possibly can. Now, it is critical that, again, absolutely critical that you do not touch where the processor is going to be contacting the heatsink after you've finished cleaning it. Now, the reason why I'm putting so much emphasis on this is because it is a serious matter. It is so easy for that to happen. Even, like, you have a guest over, and they're like, "Ooh, look at this," and they touch this, it'll introduce all sorts of skin oils and junk into the area where it'll be contacting the processor, thus heavily reducing the performance of the TIM. And it's also critical that you don't get liquid on this, because, yeah, about as bad as skin oil. That's like 400 times worse than skin oils getting on there. And you want to go ahead and just let that evaporate. So while that's evaporating, I am going to clear some room around the processor. In this case, it's probably going to have to be done by unplugging the IDE cable going to the optical drive. Because of course, plug this back in just to get out of the way. Now I'm going to take my Arctic Silver 5 and pull it out of the bag here. It's been a while since I've actually used any Arctic Silver 5. Last time I used this is whenever I was doing CPU upgrade in my computer. Now, let's see. Now, see the processor? That? What you want to do is you want to remove the cap on your thermal paste of choice. Set the cap aside, and then you want to take your thermal paste, and then you just want to go to the center of the processor and then put a little bit of thermal paste down. Do not, I repeat, do not use the entire tube like people have done in the past. Now, be sure not to get too much on there. About a pea-sized droplet of thermal paste on there should be sufficient. Now, I'm going to take my heatsink, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to very carefully put this in on one side, and then mash down, locking this in place. On other systems, you're probably going to have some screws to tighten, and you want to tighten them starting at one corner and screwing it down a little bit, going to the other corner, screwing it down the same amount you did the first corner, and then just kind of alternate these. And then you want to repeat for the other two corners until until the heatsink and or heatsink fan is fully locked in place. And I've already changed the thermal paste on this machine once, but I've had to change it again since I've had this processor swapped back and forth between my other old socket 478 system, HP Pavilion A1000Y machine for testing purposes. Now, again, there's these two heatsink clips applicable on Dell Dimension series machines. I am going to lock these. I'm going to put these in and lock these down. This isn't too much of a chore, unless you know the case is, the case has an obscene amount of stuff in it. And then, okay. So, ow. That happens. Be careful. Golly. Is that locked in? Yes, that is. Okay. So now that we have the heatsink clamped down and our heatsink locking tabs in, applicable on specific Dell systems only, we can put our fan shroud back in place and lock it down. Now, at this point, you want to reconnect your power cables at this time. Now, if you unplug your CPU power connector, we'll go ahead and plug it in. If you do not plug it in, your system will fail to boot up. Now, if you also unplugged your 24-pin power connector, plug it back in, or else your system will not even power up. So at this point, so now you've changed, okay, so now you think, okay, you changed the thermal paste, let's go ahead and conclude this video. No, no, no. We still have to test the thermal paste and make sure we're not getting some abnormal temperatures. So at this point, you can go ahead and safely put the case cover back on. And then go ahead and hook the system up. Now, let's see. Now at this point, again, hook up your system. This is usually as simple as connecting some cables. I'm gonna make, it's a little more specific in my case, as I have to make sure that I'm connecting to the proper port. I'm connecting the proper cables to the right cables to the right machine, as I have a 4-port KVM switch. There we go. I'm only gonna. The system came right up. And of course there's no. Okay, and of course there is no CMOS battery in the machine, because I think I rated it for my Pavilion A1000Y. Okay, now it wants me to enter a password. So I'm going to reset the system. Wait, I don't need to reset the system. Whoops. Whoops again. Okay. Now, of course, strike F1, F2 to run setup. So I'm just going to head right the heck into setup. Enter my setup password. Okay. It was not Friday, September 19th, 2003. Now, if your system has anything to do with temperature monitoring, you want to go ahead and head into it at this time. And this machine does not have anything for temperature monitoring here in the BIOS. So I'm just going to set the date. Oh, at least the number day was right. There we go. And I'm just going to get out of setup. Now, you want to what? Okay, so following the installation of the new thermal paste, you want to watch your temperatures closely after installing the new thermal paste. If your temperatures seem excessively high, first thing you want to do is, first of all, check to make sure you have plugged your heatsink fan in. That is almost the #1 cause of excessively high temperatures after changing your thermal paste. Next of all, read the thermal specifications on your thermal paste. There may be some kind of a burn-in time where you'll have to, where your temperatures could be excessively high, a little bit high, but once the burn-in time is passed, your temperature should start settling back down. Check to make sure you've applied your thermal paste correctly, and it covers the entirety of the as much of the IHS on the processor as you can. Failure of the thermal interface material to cover most, if not all, of the IHS could result in poor performance of the thermal interface material. Sorry, and make sure you didn't apply too much thermal paste. Too much thermal paste could cause, again, poor performance of the of both the integrated heat spreader and the thermal interface material, because too much thermal paste can result in the thermal paste somehow turning into an insulating material, kind of a semi-insulating material. And when this happens, again, you're going to get excessively high temperatures. So yeah. So, this has been a guide. Whoops. So, this has been a guide on how to replace your thermal paste in an old, in this instance, it's in an old socket 478 system. Going to be making another one of these videos. This time it's going to be in a much newer AMD, I think it's an AM2/AM2 Plus system that I've never checked the thermal paste on before, so this could get interesting with this next video. Well, this is the Computer Geek 0101010001 here. Peace out, guys. Peace out.